Just a moment, I'm just turning. Hi everyone. I'll just try to turn on the mic and I turn on a recording, a video recording on my computer. So I usually put our talks up on my YouTube channel, Cate Greaves. And thanks Jackie, thanks Ken, thanks once again to everyone at Awakening Together for what you do. Very, very grateful. This morning, or it's my morning, it's your evening, and it's whenever, it's timeless. I was going to talk about forgiveness from what's in A Course in Miracles, but before I do, I'll just say a prayer to the Holy Spirit and put him in charge. And the first thing I usually do in the morning is wake up and say, Holy Spirit, you be in charge of the day. So it puts me in a state of mind that the love will lead the way. The love in my mind will make all decisions for me. And yeah, I mean, there's just I got up this morning and there's a question sent to me by someone wanting to know something, and I just had to sit down and just say, Holy Spirit, you be in charge. And rather than me knowing what to do, what came through was to ask a couple of questions. And so when we pause, we put the Holy Spirit in charge, and we pause and we don't react, and we just wait. And we just wait for the answer to come through. It's really beautiful. It's always the right answer, and it's never really what we would choose. Because the ego wants to defend and attack and those sort of things. And I very rarely get any reaction at this stage of my journey, but I was more curious as to, you know, they were asking me to, there's been a few posts lately about what profit we made from the Australian Course in Miracles conference last year, and you know, I'm just, to me, it's not about the conference, it's about why. Why do you want to know? Like, what is it that this is really important, is to, rather than look out in the world and ask, you know, could you please explain? And I'm looking in my mind and saying, Holy Spirit, do you want me to give the details out or not? And it's more about, well, I think what's really important here is where this person is asking from, and that's the most important thing, because we have to go back to our mind. It's always, always, always 100% about where we're coming from. It's not about the world. And if we can really stay in that mindset where what we're doing is we've got a dedication to revealing what's in our minds. The world's a movie script. It's a something going by. We're mentally reviewing what's going by, and the only way I can ever be a self, or have a belief in a separate self, is when I start seeing what I'm seeing outside of me as separate to me, and that's revealed in these things in our mind. And so this vigilance has to come first. Anytime me, Cate, has to, if I get anything in my mind, my dedication is, it's not out there on the screen. There's some meaning I've put on it. If I'm getting upset, or I think somebody's doing something and they shouldn't be doing. It's always, always, always in our minds. And The thing about this Course in Miracles is it's very radical. It doesn't let you get away with one thing, because it's 100% in your mind. It's what you're projecting. And that's why when three people are standing around watching the one thing happening on the screen of life, they all have a different reaction. It's the one ego, but it always reacts differently. So that's when on my journey I started to realise that what he was saying in the Course was really, really clear and true, was that I would say, oh, did you see what they did then? You know, they shouldn't have, la, la, la. And they went, oh, I didn't really care about that. What about this? Did you see what he did, la, la, la? And I'd be like, hang on a minute. They're upset for a completely different reason. And yet, so it must be that I've got something in my mind. And then I started to look at the past. And yes, I've always been upset about that. That particular thing has always caused me problems. So what happens is the me gets upset because of that. So that's why it's really, really important to go back to our minds. Everything, every upset we've got to own. And it gets really tough at times, because we really want the upset to be outside of us. And we really want to believe that somebody's doing something to us. And the rubber meets the road when you really, find yourself that you can't overlook it. You really believe that there's something going on outside of you and you're upset about it. And that's why it takes a complete life dedication to watching your mind. But you get a lot of help. Once it's just you becoming willing to say, okay, whatever's out there is actually in my mind. And okay, so this is good, because in a way, we're in mind training here, so we're like in a classroom. So we switch to the Holy Spirit's classroom and we say, okay, I'm going to have the world give me a completely different training course. So I'm in training now, and this is the virtual reality. So to see what I'm projecting out. And so what I saw as I was on my journey was, it was like the Holy Spirit was showing me. I just saw one day that he said, imagine if you put on a virtual reality glasses and you were playing around, tinkering around, and you were pretending. I actually put some on a few months ago. I was really keen to. They were in a shopping centre and they were selling them, and I just out, in the middle of the shopping centres at those small stalls. And I put them on, and there was a one where you go up and down like a ride, I think they call them the Big Dipper over here, but it's like something that was fun. And then I think there was like underwater scuba diving and things like that. So you could switch programs and have an experience. And when you put on these virtual reality glasses, you're looking from a perspective. So if you, in a virtual reality, if you brought your hands around in front of you and you've got your virtual reality glasses on, you would see your hands. So I noticed, as the Holy Spirit guided me to say, you are looking at a virtual reality world and you believe it to be real, and you've fallen asleep. You've got your virtual reality glasses on, you've fallen asleep, and you believe you're the character. So I imagine that, if I was sitting on a couch at home and I was playing a virtual reality game, and I played it for a couple of hours, and then all of a sudden I forgot who I truly was, that I was safe on the couch. And all of a sudden I started to believe I was the character in the game. And a lot of those games, you know, those kids' games where people are trying to kill you, and they have all these villages, and my son plays them, and I've not played them very much, but I've seen them. See, some of them you can make whole families. There's games where you can be a member of a family and you have children and you have to go to work. So they mimic real life. So I imagine if they haven't already got them now, they're probably games where virtual reality, you can be that other person and you can live a whole different life. So you're sort of fallen asleep believing that we are this character. And what's happened is, when you're sitting on the couch with those virtual reality glasses on and you're very safe, and you've forgotten that you've got your glasses, the virtual reality glasses on, all of a sudden you become scared that there's somebody out to get you and they've got a gun, or you know, you're in a family game and you've got no food and you lose your job. So this is a sort of concept that the Course presents, that you're at home, your mind is actually at home in oneness, and you're dreaming you're a body here in this virtual reality. And the key to it is the first 3 lines of the Course. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. So nothing real can be threatened. So what is real is the mind, what we would call the mind that's joined with God's mind. It's who you really are is not a limited, small, separate self that thinks it's here in a world and it thinks it's attached to a body, or it thinks it is a body. And that mind that we 100% operate out of is totally false. That whole mind is false. That's why it's a dream. Everything that mind sees and hears is a whole dream world. It's a whole reality that's not there, but seems to be there. And we can't get out of that dream state that we think we're seeing and we're reacting to as if it's real, because we are identified as a body. And when we fall asleep in this virtual reality game and we start to believe that we're that avatar, and, you know, our heart will race if we think, oh my God, I am this character. And if someone shoots me, I die. But the funny thing about the virtual reality games is that a lot of the time when the characters in the virtual reality game shoot you, you just pop up again because you get all these lives. So it's like, and we're told in this dream, we're part of it. This dream is we're reincarnating into bodies. So as soon as we pop off, we're back here again. We're born again, and we're in our next part of the game. And the reason why I'm laughing is that once you really see it, it's just funny. And it's just called the happy dream after that. And the reason why when we see what's real and what's not real, we've got the peace of God. We really do have it. But they're shifting from this false reality to God's mind of perfect love and perfect peace, the peace of God. We just don't say, wake up one day and say, oh, I'm just going to move my mind today from this reality to that reality. It just doesn't happen that way. Well, it might happen for some, but it's generally a period on the timeline, because in this dream we have a timeline, and the timeline's in the dream. So we believe the body's aging, we think we're the body, and in the dream all the bodies get older. So we're identifying ourselves. So this mind, this egoic mind that's fallen asleep, well, our real mind's fallen asleep and it thinks it's here. And it's just terrifying for us, because the sane part of the mind and reality is still there. Reality is there, but it's out of our awareness. So it's like, I like the analogy of another room in a house where something else is going on, but we're sitting in this room and we're not aware of it. And unless someone rang you up or came in and said, hey, there's something going on in another room of your house, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know what is going on there. So you would say, no, there's nothing going on. Oh no, this is the only thing going on in this house is in my room here. And so it's the Holy Spirit is the mediator, and he comes into the room and he says, no, there's actually another room and you are completely unaware of it. And you think it's really scary to leave this room. I want you to get up and I want you to take my hand, and I'm going to reassure you that it's okay, that other room is safe. But your mind is going to tell you lots of stories about moving from this room to the next room. So first of all, we have to become aware that there is another room. So as we start reading the course, we're like, oh, I've actually got what they call a split mind, but the right part of my mind is out of my awareness. So I don't even know that's there. So until I actually walk with the Holy Spirit into the other room, I don't know what's in there. But we get an idea, the Holy Spirit's saying, you know, it's really beautiful there. It's really lovely. Like, you're going to be really, really happy. It's just this place where there's no fear. You don't have to worry. And you're not attached to your body. You're going to, from this room to the next room, I'm going to guide you to lose all your attachments to your body and to other bodies. But nothing ever is, there's no sacrifice. So Hal said, does it look different than the room you left? Very different. In terms of this room that I'm in, so the ego's room, let's call them the ego's room and God's room. So when I'm sitting here in the ego's room, I am very, very fearful. I'm concerned about myself. I believe that I'm a body, and I've identified very, very heavily that this body has to look really good. And what happens is I go searching for standards of how this body's got to look to be accepted. And so I look in magazines and I ask people, and I look at the internet, but it really depends on what country you're in as to what the standards are, because the ego can't make up its mind, and it sort of changes. So it changes from year to year, and it changes from probably day to day, and it changes from what country. So if I live in a Western country, the ego decides that the body needs to look slim, and at the moment it might be that really big boobs, big perky boobs are in this year, and certain hairstyles. So if I'm sitting in a Western, so this is maybe what's in Australia where I am. So So someone somewhere has decided, there's a man in a room somewhere, and he's decided that, he sat there and he said, I think this is what we want bodies to look like. And it will actually sell a lot of products. And we've got a lot of weight loss businesses that will really benefit if we say slim's really, really good. So the man in the office that makes the decision about what looks good on bodies or how bodies can look, he makes that decision. And, you know, if you lived in another country that was very poor, they would say that, you know, bodies that had a little bit of fat on them was really good. And then you might live in another country that they say, oh, the man in the room that decided in their country he said, oh, we like really big bums. And so that was what was decided. So if you lived in one country and the ego there decided that they liked small bums, and then you move to another country and they decided they like big bums, it's really, probably you have to have a lot of money because you'll have to get your inserts put in. Because you've identified yourself as a body. And so, of course, I'm hoping that you're getting the gist of why I'm laughing, because once you finally see how ridiculous these egoic rules are, and what happens is that we've fallen for it. We've absolutely fallen for it. And I remember Spirit said to me, because I had a lot of body stuff as well, I believed I was a body, and it was never good enough. So Spirit said to me, find the person that decided so identify what you think your body needs to look like. So I wrote it all out. I thought, okay, it needs to be this and this weight. It needs to look like this. It has to have firm skin. I don't want any wrinkles. I want the skin to look really clear, and the teeth have to be white and evenly spaced, and this, that, and the other. And the hair, well, has to be like this. And then the Spirit said to me, now find the man in the office that came up with those rules. I want you to tell me who made those rules up. And oh my God, when I went into that, I just had this massive aha moment. I said, who made this up? Who made it? And that's why I'm following these rules, and the minute I go and get my inserts put in to have the boobs to conform to what my society says looks good, the next year the man might change his mind and say no, little boobs are in, and then I'd have to be running around trying to find a place to get them taken out. So I just started laughing, and I thought, oh my God, a lot of my friends here, I've met a couple of people that get a lot of plastic surgery, and one lady said to me, oh, what do you get, Cate? And I said, oh, I don't get anything. I didn't want to say I don't believe I'm a body, or I'm not identified with my body is probably more. I mean, I can't deny it. I can't deny I seem to have a body, and I look after it. It's not about denying it. So we're trying to hold paradoxes in our mind. This is the spiritual journey, is about holding paradoxes. But this lady, she had, see, the ego is seek and do not find. So she had a bit of money. So she had spent a lot of she was younger than me. She'd spent a lot of money on plastic surgery, and she just said, oh no, I want more, I want more, I want more. So she said, all I do is get this plastic surgery and then plan for my next one. And she was really curious. I was interesting to her because I was just so happy with my wrinkles. And you know, this is when you're not identified as a body and you're not believing yourself to be a body, or that's what you are. You know that you're coming, there's something coming through this body, and it's moving its mouth and moving its lips, and the voice is coming through it, and it's laughing. There's something, this, whatever this mind of God or this consciousness or awareness is just having fun through this body. It's neutral, this body is neutral, but it just gets looked after and it's effortless. And honestly, I just hardly pay any attention to it at all. And I was saying to a friend on the weekend, I also love the analogy of a car. Like, imagine you get in your car, and the car can speak for you, because that's really, well, I like to use the analogy of a body in a car. And so when you get in your car, you don't say, I am the car. This is me. So imagine you're driving around in your car. It's getting you from one place to another. You're putting petrol or gas in it to get it somewhere. You're maintaining it. You take it to get it fixed up. If it gets a flat tyre, you don't get worried and say, oh, you know, that's me. You just go and get it fixed up. And imagine the car can speak for you. So imagine whatever you think you want to say, the car has got some sort of voice box and it can speak for you. So you use it. So you use that car to get around, and you might paint something on it to make, if you want to pretty it up, but for not 1 minute do you think you're that car. You just don't say, oh my God, if my car gets totaled in an accident, I'm dead. You know you're in the car. You're using the car, but you're not it. And whatever happens to the car, it will one day probably get gently laid aside. But who you are is not the car, and it's not this body. But you need to look after it. You can't deny it. So if you say, see, this is the thing, is you can't say, oh, I'm not the car, so I just won't put any gas in it and I won't get it serviced. Well, the car's not going to work. So the car will just, the Holy Spirit just, there Jesus says in the Course that it'll just, the body will just get looked after. As the mind clears and it stops identifying itself with the body, you will, excuse me, hang on. As you stop identifying yourself, who you are as a body. So that's really the essence of nothing real can be threatened, because it really goes back to the body. That's why Jesus has all those lessons that we repeat, all those review lessons. I'm not a body. I'm not a body. I'm not a body. He's really drilling it into us. I mean, he's really he's really trying to bring this message home over and over again. You're not what you think you are. And as we undo that idea that I am this body and I die when this body dies, this is probably the most important lesson of the Course. If you can lose your identification as being a body, you've basically got the Course, because you won't get upset with anybody else doing anything to you, because every time you're upset with someone that you think is outside you doing something to you, if you look if you drill down and you question those thoughts, you'll come back to something to do with the body. It always, always, always comes back to the body, that you think you're a body and that person is hurting you. Well, if you're not a body and you're perfect spirit's unaffected by anything. So forgiveness is, the whole course is a course in forgiveness. And forgiveness really can't be pinned down, because really what forgiveness is any time you notice your egoic thoughts. Oh, sorry, Hal, I just saw your question. I meant, does the room visually look different? No, there's nothing here in the room looking different. It's more, I would say, okay, yeah, let me think about this. Does the two rooms we're moving from, so this is what I would say. In the room of the ego, there's the world, there's the projected world, and it looks real. It looks heavy and solid, and it looks like people are real, and it looks like it's just got a solidness about it. As we move in, and it's really a good question, Hal, as we move into the Holy Spirit's or God's mind, it's light. It's not in terms of a light as in what a bulb is, a light. I mean, it's weightless. It's the world you see is seen more like, say for example, you put your virtual reality glasses on, and I encourage you, if you're listening to this, to have a go. If you know of anyone that's got a pair of virtual reality glasses, put them on, and you would know in your mind, just saying, I'm looking at something that is not really there, and I'm seeing it. So you're still seeing it. So when you look at those virtual reality glasses, if you go into an underworld where you're like scuba diving and you're seeing lots of fish, you're not saying to yourself, those fish aren't there. I'm not seeing a rock, and I'm not seeing the sea, and I'm not seeing the water. You're just saying, I'm seeing something that can't affect me. So it's beautiful. Disconnected. Can you explain a little bit more, Hal, what you mean, like disconnected? Are the two rooms disconnected, or do I feel disconnected? Actually, what happens, you feel, it's funny, you feel more connected in the Holy Spirit's room, because you're one with everything. But it's not one with bodies, it's actually the essence of everything. So as you move into, see what happens in this ego's room, you feel disconnected, you feel separate. And as you move into God's room, you start to see that you are everything. Everything in that room is you, and your awareness. Yeah, he said he's got it. Yeah, these are great questions, Hal. I really like them. That's good. That's great. It's led me along to probably show a little bit more of this little analogy that Spirit gave me. Because a lot of these things are really difficult to explain in words or concepts and things like that. So God's mind still sees the same thing. I mean, when Jesus was being crucified, it wasn't like he was just seeing white light. I always thought that if you woke up, you just saw light everywhere. What happens is you just you feel your unity with everything. You're absolutely in love with every part of this stream. You're in love with it. It's like you can't describe the love you feel for everything, even a blade of grass you're in love with. And it's like your mind is so free of worrying about itself, because when you're not worried about, as soon as you lose that sense of that I am the body, it opens up something in your mind, and it opens up the love, because it's really like the blocks. They're the blocks to love's awareness. So, because all the fears related to being a body. And so as we lose the fear of being a body, it just, the love that comes through, it's so amazing. It's so pure and so holy and so giving. It's beyond anything I could ever imagined experiencing myself. And it brings me to tears every time I think about it. And I feel so grateful I get to live with this love. And you might say it's in your heart, but really it's in your mind. But then where's the mind? So I don't know where this love is. I can't say, because we can't identify where the mind is. And when we say heart, the heart is actually an organ that's being projected into the body. So like it's a virtual reality. So where are these things? But we don't need to know where they are. We just need to know that's what we're feeling. And so this is the result. This peace of God is the open-hearted love that shines through, and it comes from joining with God's mind. God is this. It's really hard to explain what God is, because my concept of God got changed so dramatically when I sort of had this mind opening, and I actually saw from God's perspective, and I went, oh, I thought God was very different on my journey, but it's really the pristine, clear mind that has no fear in it, and it just loves. That's what God is. And that part of our mind we never separated from, but it feels like we did. And the tiny mad idea is every moment that you think you're separate. The tiny mad idea didn't happen millions of years ago. It's happening now, because there's only now. There's actually no time. It's just always this now. So it's like a timeless state of clarity, of clear seeing, of clearly loving. But it's sort of, in a way, it's also we're on a timeline as well. I need to know what time. I need to stop talking. So it's this love of God. It is beautiful and it is amazing. And I've just today's Monday morning here in Australia. Reverend Howells just said timelessness is a difficult concept to grasp. Yes, Hal, I agree. I struggled with that for many years. People would talk about be in the now. Eckhart Tolle would talk about be in the now, and I would just bring my focus back to what I was doing, believing that's what he was talking about, and that is a practice you can do. But what I did, Hal, was I asked the Holy Spirit to show me what this timelessness was. And I just waited, and it came in about a few days later. And that's one of the things about A Course in Miracles. It gives you, there's a helper. So when we're moving from this room to the other room, we don't have to go on our own. We will gradually move with the Holy Spirit. So I just asked the Holy Spirit, I've got no idea what this timelessness is. I thought it was every second of the clock was a now. So I'll be like, okay, so it's now, then it's now, then it's now. So it's every second. So I was trying to use my thinking mind to grasp timelessness. But there's another part of our mind that lives in timelessness. And what happens is you don't have to understand timelessness. You have to experience it. So just really get quiet and, you know, get really still your mind, and just ask the Holy Spirit, can you bring me the experience of timelessness? And you have to mean it with all your heart. you have to want it more than anything else. And so he'll bring it in. He will. He wants to bring everything in to you. He wants to give you this mind. He wants you to experience timelessness. He wants to experience this peace. It's this mind is there for everyone. It's not special, but you have to choose it. That's all. And what happens is the ego's mind, which is a false reality and a false mind, it's really funny because it fights against the change. It says it goes from suspicious to vicious. So it's like when you put your virtual reality glasses on the couch, and then somebody comes into the virtual reality, like a Holy Spirit enters and says, hey, you forgot you're still on the couch. And you go, no, hang on, I'm really scared. I'm really scared of changing this reality. I'm really worried that if I wake up or if I move out of this virtual reality, that something's going to change in my life. This virtual reality is going to change. And actually, I've just been, I just facilitated my first retreat this weekend. It's Monday morning here in Australia, and I didn't do it. The Holy Spirit did it through me, because if I had to do anything, I'd probably run a mile. It's probably something, I was probably one of the shyest people you could meet. And I've talked a few times about how I couldn't speak for about 2 or 3 years. I had so much fear, my throat closed up. And every time I spoke, it was really difficult, because the fear in my mind had, like, my throat, all the muscles in my throat had all clenched up, and it was like this squeaky, funny voice, and I was really, really embarrassed. So I just sort of decided not to speak much. So I avoided doing lots of things, and at work I got myself a job where I didn't have to speak to many people. I was terrified of it happening, and I was terrified of speaking. And a few times I got asked to answer the phone. And I was so scared the phone was going to ring when the receptionist went to lunch. Then I'd answer it, and this squeaky voice would come through, and I'd just be, oh no, they're going to see how crazy I am. I can't even speak. I'm laughing about it now, but it was a terrible time. So it is funny, but at the time it was awful. It was just this is the thing, is we're so concerned about what other people think about us, when you know all these things end up fading away, because as you undo the idea of your body, you lose your identification of what people think about you. I mean, I don't care about what anyone thinks about me, because who's the me? I can't be threatened by what they think about me. What they think about me is their mind projecting what they think about me, because really, I'm perfect spirit. I'm perfect Christ. So anything that when they see my body, and when they hear my words, they're looking at their mind's meaning they've put on me. That's why everybody will see me differently, and everybody will see you differently. Some people will like you, some people will hate you, some people won't have a reaction. Some people will get massively triggered by the smallest thing you do. That's why you know it's not you. Don't ever take anything personally. Everyone is looking at their past and seeing you. So it's like if it's really good, you can imagine people, they've got all these different glasses on. So I remember like Elton John, you know, had all those different glasses. If you can imagine, they've just picked up and they're all wearing, some are wearing like pineapples on their glasses, and some are very cool, and some are really big, and some are small. So everyone's just got their glasses on, and how they're seeing, they can't see you. No one can see you. They're viewing you through their mind, but then they don't know they are. So they're saying, oh, you did this and you hurt my feelings when you did this, which is funny because you can't hurt anyone's feelings. They're hurting their own feelings. They're seeing their mind, their past projected out onto you. And that's why you can be saying the same thing to two different people. One will get upset and one will laugh at what you say. Because but you can't help it when someone's saying that you've upset them and you should change. There's not much you can do unless they're ready to look at their projections. They're ready to ask the Holy Spirit to help them with clearing up their past. And there's honestly, there's nothing you can do if someone's projecting something onto you. And we were all doing that. It's not something special. Every mind is projecting their meaning, and it changes. That's why you get, you know, Donald Trump. He's trying to find the bad guy, and you know, one day it'll be, you know, building a wall to keep the bad guy in or out or whatever. The ego has to look for somewhere outside there to keep it safe. So if Donald Trump wasn't identified as his body and he knew that he couldn't be threatened, imagine how this love would come through. He would just be coming from pure love, and he would just be saying to all the other countries, hey, how can we help you? I want to be helpful. I'm here to be truly helpful. What can we do to help you? Let's get rid of all the nukes and let's work on helping you feed your poor. What can we do to help everyone have enough food? And how can we have some housing? And how, you know, what can we do because everybody is you. And it's really, that's really where it comes from. Just the love pours out, and you don't try to have to be loving, because that's what is left. So yeah, one day we might have an awake president or prime minister or something of a country, and that will be amazing to see how that love goes out. I'm very impressed with the Pope. This Pope we've got is just purely, he's really beautiful. He washed the feet of the Muslims. He recently, I saw him on television, he was joining with one of the Muslim leaders and hugging, and he is doing more for this world than anything else. He's showing us the way. He's really amazingly just showing us this love that doesn't see separateness. He's a true leader, and we do get them at times, and it's lovely to see that he's not seeing him, that there's any differences, that they're connected through love. So rather than saying that our religion says this and your religion says that. Yeah, Reverend Hal says, I feel the same about this Pope. Yes. He's a beautiful representation of Christ's love, Christ's way. The way. Christ said, love your brother as I have loved you. He didn't put a little bracket after that and say, except the Muslims, except the people that believe in different things, except the ones with different coloured skin to you. He didn't say that. He just said, love one another as I have loved you. And he loved with this beautiful, pure love that he felt, this love of the Holy Spirit, this love, that's why we call it agape Christ love, because he showed, he did not see sickness, he did not see a body, he did not see anything else about who you truly were. He went around and he healed the sick because the love that was radiating out of his eyes. And this, you know, I've done a lot of healing with Jesus in my mind, and my gosh, when I first started doing it, I couldn't look in his eyes. They were just so penetratingly beautiful. And then I read in a book somewhere that there are stories that people had trouble looking at his eyes because the love that was coming through them, oh, it's just so beautiful, so gorgeous, so pure, so white. It's nothing that we could ever experience here in this ego's world. Well, we can experience it, I should say. That's why he's here, to tell us that's what you are, and I'm not special having this love. And this Pope is leading the way. You know, it's not about dogma and religions and, you know, you have to believe this or I'm not going to speak to you. It's about being this love, acting from this Christ love, opening up, seeing everyone as who they truly are, like Christ, that Christ essence in them, and practicing that. So the one person that you find hardest to forgive or hardest to be around, that's the one that you need to be practicing on. That's the one that you have to, well, what Spirit showed me one day was, he said, imagine that Jesus had come back for a day and he was coming back as that person. And I want you, but that the person's body stays the same, but that Christ is in them. And I want you to, how would you feel if Christ walked in the room? I was having trouble with a girl at work. I seemed to be having trouble. And I went to work and I just imagined that she was Jesus Christ that day. And I'm like, oh my God, how would I treat Jesus if he came back? And all of a sudden, all my behaviour changed towards her. And, well, I wanted to just rush up and hug her. But I thought, well, no, that's going to seem really strange because she seemed to be the bully, and not just of me, many minds there. But so I was like, well, okay, I've got to act appropriately. But if it had been somebody that was out of work, I probably would have hugged them. It was the first time I was being shown that that's actually how I have to see everyone. I was being mind trained by the Holy Spirit, and he asked me to imagine Jesus coming back for a day, and he's coming back as that lady. So I was like, oh my goodness, what would I do for Jesus? This is just this love. I would just be like, oh my goodness, I would want to do anything he asked me to do, and I would just love him, and he's amazing. And just my heart started to open up, to this woman. So I was starting to see her differently. Yes, Hal, you couldn't do enough for him. I know I couldn't do enough, but it would have seemed a bit weird at work if all of a sudden I changed completely from my ego was being fully triggered by her at the time, so was being mind trained. So I didn't really have to do anything for her. I just had to see her that way. So anyway, she worked in the next office to me, and every time she came in, I was like smiling at her and I'd say, how's your day? How's this? How's that? How's your son's baseball or whatever he was playing? I remember he was very big in baseball, and everything I said just came from this, tell me more, and I want to get to know you. And so it was more like an attitude of love. As before, I was scared of her. And then I was just asked to bless her. Yeah, Hal's just saying he might try the same thing on someone else. Yeah, good. It is mind training, and it's beautiful when you do it. And then I had to do it with my father. And I had major grievances with him. The Holy Spirit was mind training me back to seeing the truth. So overlooking the forgiveness, overlooking the body, overlooking the words, not taking anything personally, and just responding to the Christ within him. And then I was through that, which is the forgiveness. My mind was opening up to its Christ mind. So I was moving to the other room. That's what he was doing. He was gently taking my hand and saying, okay, we're off to this room where everyone is Christ. But for now, just practice on this one. And then, okay, you got that one down pat, now another one. And it's just as we do this work with the Holy Spirit is leading us, where all of a sudden we're in the next room, we're like, oh, how did I get here? And the Holy Spirit's done his mind training. So as the truth of who everyone is starts to dawn on our minds, and our minds open up to our Christ self, everything else falls away. All the fear falls away, all the worry, all the anxiety, all the depression, and then the body just heals. Because the body is a projection from the fearful mind, or the sickness is. So we don't have to try to get well. All we have to do is practice forgiveness. We have to just do these things, and the body just smiles. All my depression and all my chronic fatigue and all my chronic tonsillitis just completely disappeared. And I haven't had it any for years now. And it was all just through this healing of the mind. So, yes, I've been free. I don't get sick anymore. I haven't been sick for years. And yet I was chronically had the influenza and very bad tonsillitis, where it's like you're swallowing razor blades. It's awful. I used to get these big injections because I used to get it so bad. I'd have it for days. And it was all caused from fear. So anyway, it's getting on to the hour, so I will say goodbye and say thank you very much for having me, and blessings to Regina. I see she's online, and thank you, Hal, for your questions, and thanks, Ken, for hosting the room. And I love you all. I bless you. I honour you, and have a beautiful evening and enjoy the next program. And good night. Goodbye.